Well, welcome everybody back from the break. Hope you had a good break here. We're going to move into our second speaker of the day, Father Nathan Cromly. And he's going to be talking about the virtue of zeal. And before we get into him, just real quickly, if you have questions and comments as we're going through these, use the interface of this video, I think the question or comment function, and plop those in there, and we may be able to address them later, one of the speakers or one of us here at the Pastoral Center. So just put those in there as you're going through the reflections. As I said, our next speaker is Father Nathan Cromly, CSJ. He's a Catholic priest who has dedicated his life to strengthening marriages, families, and young adults. Through his work, he has gained a unique perspective on the issues that touch marriage and family life. As a nationally renowned Catholic leader and dynamic speaker, Father Nathan has hosted a series on Radio Maria and has appeared on EWTN on several occasions. For the past 11 years, he has led the annual Maria Stein Mothers Retreat and the newer, equally popular Cincinnati Men's Retreat to consistently full capacity crowds. He has engaged young adults with excursions that include mountain climbing and whitewater rafting in locations such as New Zealand, Scotland, Hawaii, and Ireland. He is founder and president of both Eagle Eye Ministries and the St. John Institute in Denver, Colorado. And of course, I don't mind saying he's a very dear, beloved face around the diocese here in Toledo. And so please welcome Father Nathan Cromly.
Thanks, everybody. Awesome to be with you. And thanks so much for that kind introduction. I am a product of the Diocese of Toledo, so it's an honor for me to address you, the teachers, because it always makes me smile. You are my teachers, and so if you don't like this talk, you can all say we have to make sure this never happens again, because I went to Maumee St. Joe's, where I had excellent Sisters of Notre Dame and lay people who were my teachers, and I'm very dedicated to them, very thankful to them for all the great things they did. Then I went to St. Francis High School, graduated in class of '94. And was very dedicated to that as well. And so thank you for the great job that you did. I take you with me everywhere I go. They gave me the hardest one. I just want to complain at the beginning of this talk here, because I've been trying to prepare for this and looking, thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And, you read what Basil Moreau writes about zeal, and it just makes me smile, because on the one hand, it's my favorite thing to talk about. And it's probably the favorite one to everyone to listen to. But at the same time, it's the hardest one to talk about, because it's the undefinable, the ineffable. If you could capture zeal, you would capture teaching. Okay? You are as good a teacher as you are zealous for your teaching. And so to the degree that you have zeal inside, you will be a leader in the classroom. Right? So a leader on the outside begins by zeal on the inside. But so everyone's like, well, what is this? And it's true. If you could nail the question of zeal, you'd be happy in your job, your students would love you, and you'd be the Christ-centered, amazing teacher that you're supposed to be, right? There's not a doubt about it. The secret to everything is the zeal. So then you're like, what's the zeal and how do I get it? Yeah, well, that is the whole question there. Because, and I find this fascinating from an intellectual point of view, that what zeal represents, to use a French expression, c'est l'au-delà de l'amour. Right? C'est l'au-delà de l'amour. Au-delà means it's the going beyond, the excess of love. Right? It's the excess of teaching. It's the ineffable zest of life, right? So giving a talk on zest, giving a talk on pep, it's like giving a talk on motivation. It's the most unmotivating thing in the world to have to listen to a talk on motivation. The science of motivation is to find what people want. And that's like, of course, a redundancy, because like to say, if I found out what you wanted, I wouldn't need to give you a talk on motivation. I'll talk about what you wanted, right? So talk about zeal and how you get it and how you can maintain it is a very unmotivating thing. It's almost a deflation, because most of you beginning that whole series of thoughts coming down to what zeal is, end up by saying, I am not zealous. And as a matter of fact, it makes me depressed to think about it. You read about what Basil Moreau writes about zeal, for example, and he'll say, zeal is what makes the students be silent when they're supposed to, study when they're supposed to. And then he even goes and says, they will obey the teacher who is zealous without any threats or reprimands coming from that teacher. And all of us are like, right? Like, that means that I'm basically going to be no good, and that like I'm supposed to, and then I get on here and I'm like, now be zealous, And it is amazing. I mean, when you look at what zeal is, you look at what the great people who had zeal did. Read St. Paul, 2 Corinthians 11. Everybody take out your pen, write this down for me. 2 Corinthians 11. So during the break, you can read 2 Corinthians 11. It's St. Paul talking about his zeal, and it's pretty amazing. He's basically like, I'm going to drop the gloves for a second here and tell you what I did for Jesus. He said, I've worked harder than all the other apostles. I've done more than all the other apostles. I've journeyed more than the other apostles. I've been in prisons more than the other apostles, and I've been beaten more than the other apostles. 5 times I was given the 39 lashes. That's 40 lashes minus 1. There's 195 whip strokes on my backside. 3 times I was scourged. I was beaten with rods. I was even stoned. Stoned. They threw stones at the guy's head. It goes back, if you read the Acts of the Apostles, of course, you know all of this, and I'm sure you all read the Acts of the Apostles, but just in case you don't, they stoned St. Paul. And when they finished stoning him, they left him on the ground. The Christians went over to him. They gathered around him. Everybody else thought he was dead, so they just walked away. And they gathered around him, and they said that St. Paul got up again. And he goes right back into the city where they had just stoned him. It's absolutely unbelievable. He goes back all the way to Antioch, and he finds that St. Peter's St. Peter's disciples, Jewish converts, they were actually giving a hard time to his Gentile converts. So he walked in another 5 days, all the way after being stoned in Lystra, all the way down to Jerusalem, and he fights with the apostles to finally at the First Ecumenical Council, which is like, a nice way of saying like quite a little combat, to get this acknowledgement from them, Acts 15, that the Gentiles were allowed to not have to follow the whole Mosaic law. Then he goes back on his second missionary journey. And this is just, again, incredible. What happens with St. Paul? He walks 500 miles. I went and did the map. I looked. 500 miles, over 30 days of walking without a single convert. He gets denied 3 different cities, and he just keeps on going, keeps on going, keeps on going. He was put in prison, for example, in Philippi at the end of that whole walk. They throw him in prison after having beaten him with rods. And in the middle of the night, at midnight, in the middle of a prison, with his feet in shocks and his hands in chains, Paul and Titus sing hymns to God in the middle of the night. It says right in the Bible. It's unbelievable. That's zeal. Zeal is just like, you're unstoppable for what you're supposed to do. Now, you can understand, if you have zeal and you're a principal, then you're going to work for your teachers. And you're not just going to sit there and say, I'm just punching the clock. Boy, I wonder when I can get out of the hot seat. This is getting really hard to be a Catholic school principal now. I guess I'll let someone else do it, right? Like, that's not exactly zeal, everybody, right? Because it's not exactly love, right? It's kind of hard to just be like, you know what? Like, I hope someone else can carry this heavy burden because, like, I'm out. I'm looking for an easy job. Let's say zeal and love are in a sense synonymous and in a sense different. You cannot have zeal if you do not have love. You can have love without zeal, but it's a love that's waning. Zeal is a healthy love. It's the health inside of love. It's the zest inside of the orange peel. Just random little example there. It's what makes everything that you do excel. Now, the thing about being a teacher in a Catholic school is that since we're following the King of Kings and we're working for the Lord of Lords, he kind of commands us to have zeal. It's not enough for us just to say, I'm teaching in a Catholic school. Well, how do you be an excellent teacher? You can't be an excellent teacher in a Catholic school without being excellent. See, most of the time when we say I'm going to be an excellent teacher, it means I'm just going to be a teacher. And that's nice. If you're doing that already, hey, that's halfway there. As one of my teachers at St. Francis used to say, no, you get half credit, 50%, F minus. It's kind of a cruel way, especially because I think we're abolishing Fs now in some schools. So like that's old speak there, but like half credit, I'm a teacher. That's halfway there, 50%, F minus. A Catholic school teacher has to be over the top. So like, and now when you think about it, let me just put that in a little bit of a different phrase. Gets to be over the top. I mean, remember this, a zealous teacher will be loved by their students, will be gratified in their job, and will be excellent in what they do, have the job of what they do, have been motivated by the right things. We get to be zealous. It's the blessing of working for Christ, right? Because his love always excelled. So what's at the heart of zeal? Well, you think about it. Let's go back to this. Zeal is the health of love, right? St. Thomas Aquinas. I know you're going to quote me St. Thomas Aquinas. People love this. They're just like, quote St. Thomas Aquinas. Well, here's what St. Thomas, he says, zeal is the vehemence of love, the vehemence, vehemence amore. It's a beautiful little expression, vehemence. It means to vehement. See what I mean? It's the ineffable. It's the hardest thing to communicate intellectually. It's the easiest thing to communicate with some zeal yourself. And so I want to speak about that vehemence, the vehemence of your love, the depth of the drive inside of you and where you get it. There's two ways to develop zeal. Number one, eradicate all of the stops. Okay, so pull all the stops out of the organ. Zeal is you playing the organ full stops. Let's just pull them all and make that glorious sound that fills and echoes throughout the stadium, right? That incredible, how do you do that? What are the stops that are keeping my voice at bay, keeping my heart corked, frankly? And I'll tell you what they are. Number one, past wounds. It is so hard to recover from students who've rejected you. It just really is. And you know, some teachers even wipe out in their career. They even quit the whole profession because they tried and the kids didn't like them. You get a bad review from the class. Parents, oh my gosh. I mean, it's like the elephant in the room. We're not allowed to talk about, well, since I'm not like on the staff, let me just say, parents are like the hardest thing. You'd be fine teaching the kids, but then you have those parent-teacher conferences and then they just go after you. And then you might not feel supported. Wounds, right? Betrayal. My superior, my principal didn't support me. She's actually out to get me, right? And then that can happen. And then parents are out to get you. Students don't like you. You mean like you're just like, whoa. And all of those wounds can pile up and convince you that Jesus Christ didn't send you into that classroom. That's the death blow. That's the knockout punch. Because all of those wounds can get in the way between you and your vocation. I was sent here by Jesus as his gift to this classroom. Could you imagine how differently you'd approach every day if you thought of yourself as God's gift to those students? And I said, I know this. If I can have that mentality, I'm God's gift to you today, then everything that I've got that's beautiful and good, I give to you because I am your gift. I am God's gift to you. I am the best thing that's happened to you all day. I mean, it's almost like it releases the greatness that's inside of you. And you become zealous because you're coming from love. You know that you are loved, so you can love in return. And so what the whole trick is that, well, if I was going to stop that process, I'd stop that process by convincing you you're not loved. The parents hate you, the kids hate you, and your principal wants to fire you. So you're just like, I'm surrounded. Except this, you don't have to listen to that negativity. As a matter of fact, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You could end up, in other words, being a bad teacher because you talked yourself into it by listening to people who said that you were a bad teacher. What if you stopped that and said, every one of those three people are not the one I'm teaching for. I'm teaching for Christ. I'm teaching for God. This is why I'm in a Catholic school getting paid so well. Just incredible. I'm in it because I'm doing this for him. What does Jesus say about you? I'm going to read you an awesome quote that I found the other day. Talking about motivation. I had to give a talk. It was like 3 days ago. I was in Chicago giving this talk and I had no idea what I was going to say. And I was just feeling down and out. I was tired. I've been on the road all the time going around, doing all these things and blah, 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 blah. And I come across this quote by Mother Teresa. It was so awesome. I took a picture of it on my phone. I'm going to read it for you from my phone. It's just beautiful. It says this. It's a long quote. It's a long quote, so get yourself ready. But this describes the source of zeal. I want you to read this or hear this because at the bottom, the end of the quote is the secret to Mother Teresa being Mother Teresa, and it's the secret of you being you. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will have some false friends and some true enemies. Be successful anyway. If you are honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. What you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have. Give your classroom the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the best you've got anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Mother Teresa. Great quote. In the final analysis, you see, it's between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Let's remember this. The students will follow you. The parents will follow you. You're not caused or pushed around by anybody when you're Christ's teacher. The one you respond to is Jesus. You give him the very best of your heart, and he will give the very best of your heart to your students. You surround, and it's almost like a type of emotional chastity, my friends, to get away from all that betrayal and negativity. You can have to do it. It's almost self-indulgent. It's great to feel like you've been betrayed. You know, it's just the easiest thing to claim that you're the victim of everybody else. I got pushed out because those parents. I got pushed out because my principal. I got pushed out because my sister. You know, it's easy. It's easy. It's self-gratifying. The only problem is you get pushed out. What if Jesus actually wants you in the ring? What if he actually wants you in the classroom? What if he wants you in the hearts of those kids? I mean, you went to 4 years of college, 6 years of college. Some of you have PhDs in education, 10 years of college, unreal, you know, for the opportunity to lead a classroom, to lead a school. I mean, and you're going to allow this or that to be bigger than your own heart. That's a lack of zeal. And I think Jesus knew how hard it would be, which is why he wanted you today to hear this message, to build up your zeal by not listening to that voice of negativity. Betrayal, wounds have to be gone. What do you do with them? Very best spot, bring them to prayer. Bring yourself to your knees and give that to Jesus Christ, and then stop listening to that negativity. You don't have time for it. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help your students. Second thing that you do is you put yourself in a context with God. Honestly, my friends, if you're not praying every day, or if you're not praying regularly, you don't have a relationship with God, I frankly don't know how you're going to maintain zeal. There's two types of zeal. Again, if you go back to St. Thomas Aquinas, which is one of my favorite guys to go back to, he says, well, you can be zealous for two things. You can be zealous for yourself, or you can be zealous for the one you love. And it's true. If we're not zealous for the one we love, meaning Christ, you know, falling in love with him, eventually we might be zealous, but it'll be for our own reputation, our own gratification with the students, our own this, our own that. We're zealous for ourselves in the end. And that ends up, as you know, kind of leading and tending towards corruption. We don't really want that. Instead, what we want is to be zealous for Christ. So how do I do that? I allow beauty to come into my heart. And my friends, again, like, remember the mental health that you need to carry into your classroom, and take care of yourselves. Big encouragement coming from, we have to like be like a surgeon who going into a 13-hour surgery takes the time to rest and to prep themselves. You don't just nail brain surgery after brain surgery after brain surgery without taking care of yourself on the outside. Well, you are a brain surgeon in a very real sense in the classroom. You guys have got such a duty to do. And so your voice is shot. You've got a cold. You're sitting at the 7th period, end of the day, with 30 kids going nuts in a non-air conditioned classroom. Like, most people cannot do what you do. You're exceptional and you're extraordinary. Take care of yourself. Do you have a place of beauty in your life? Do you do something that restores and regenerates your heart? Do you pray every day if you can? My goodness. If we don't, I don't know how long you'll go without burning out. But I'll tell you, you don't have to. On the contrary, Jesus, your faith, your God is the key to your teaching. He's what makes you zealous. He's what keeps you going. And he's what makes you shine with an extraordinary light. You can do it because he is with you. And so I guess, to sum up about zeal, it's the thing that's the hardest to talk about intellectually. But I would put it this way. If you love, then love all the way. And the person who loves all the way and walks into that classroom loving all the way, the students will follow. And who cares about the parents anyway? No, I mean, like, you care about the parents, but you get the point where I'm trying to say, like, in the end, you respond to your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And in that love, find yourself as his gift. And then let him give you full stop, full bore, all out, because your students deserve it. And your God is asking you for it. May God bless you. Keep you zealous this day and every day in front of your students, wherever you may be.
And now from Father Nathan on this fundamental relationship with God, out of which our active life has to stem. If we don't start there with God, cultivating that relationship with God, starting in prayer, falling in love with God, then everything else is going to be dry and withered and dead. So let's take another 10 minutes here. We're going to take 10 minutes for a break and reflect on this. Remember, don't forget your homework, students. Father Nathan said to look up 2 Corinthians 11 to read about St. Paul's zeal. But let's think about this relationship of love out of which God will give us this gift of zeal that we take into our classrooms. We'll see you again in 10 minutes.